Diagnosed with autism at 13 years old, Thomas ILAND has worked hard to achieve all his goals, learning to drive, living on his own, graduating from college, obtaining full-time employment, and having a girlfriend. Tom recently left his career as a certified public accountant to educate, inspire, and motivate people affected by autism. His talk, Know Yourself, Love Yourself, Be Yourself, takes you deep into finding your voice and ultimately being the hero of your own life so you can accomplish your hopes and dreams. This speech is intended for parents, teachers, therapists, and other professionals that work with young adults with autism and other learning differences. Please welcome the fantastic Thomas ILAND.
Autism. What comes to your mind when you hear that word? Would anybody like to share what they associate with autism?
Having a challenging life.
Having a challenging life, very much so. Anyone else?
Intense.
Good with numbers.
Good with numbers.
Smart.
Smart. All great examples. Maybe you've seen someone with autism walking around the community, rocking back and forth. Or maybe kind of shaking their hands like this. Or who remembers the movie Rain Man with Dustin Hoffman? Yeah, we're counting cards. That's one of the earliest versions of autism in the media. But we have evolved over time. Autism is now defined as a spectrum condition. You have those that have it mildly. Would you have known that I had it if it wasn't mentioned that I do?
No.
And you have those that have it a little more severely. But the truth is, when you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. They're all unique and different, but they all have the potential to make something of themselves and make this world a better place. Let me take you back in time to 1988. I was 4 years old. My aunt, that's my mother's sister, was the autism specialist for the state of Illinois and thought that I might have autism. But my aunt didn't have the courage to suggest it to my mother that I might. I was my mother's firstborn. My mother had high expectations of herself. So my aunt made it seem like a play date. She said to my mother, I'm taking Tom out to have some fun. And I'm riding along with my aunt thinking, okay, we're going to play some puzzles, do some word associations. This is fun. Little did I know that I was being screened for autism. And the diagnostic criteria at the time said that I was too smart to have autism. My aunt eventually did tell my mother, and my mother freaked. How dare you suggest my son have autism? All geniuses play in the corner by themselves. He doesn't need to play those silly games like other kids do. Stay out of our way. That was her attitude for years. Fast forward to 1995, 1996. The diagnostic criteria changed. You could be very smart and still qualify for autism and have that diagnosis. At that point, that's when I was formally diagnosed. But my mother didn't tell me about my diagnosis at first. Let me tell you about what actually prompted her to tell me. I have two younger siblings, a brother and a sister. My brother got calls from friends looking to hang out. My sister got calls from friends looking to hang out. I wasn't receiving any calls from anybody. I went to my mother looking for answers. Mom, why doesn't the phone ever ring for me? And she was taken aback, not really sure what to say or how to say it. But she took a moment to think. Rather than say, you don't have any friends or you're no good at making friends, she told me, you're still learning how to make friends. I felt a little more hopeful about that and not offended. But it prompted a bigger discussion, one that would change my life forever. she sits me down at the kitchen table with my dad and proceeds to tell me that I have a condition called autism. Now I was taken aback. I don't want to have autism. I want to be like everybody else. I stormed off to my room. I must have cried for a good hour. The pillow was soaked. Devastation was what I was feeling intensely. I thought life as I knew it was over. But I took a moment to think. At the time, I had a hero in my life, Batman. I thought to myself, what would Batman do in this situation? He would face his fears. So I decided, I'm going to go face mine. Went back out to my mom and said, you know, Mom, this explains a lot. And it did, because I finally had some answers, and it explained some of the odd behaviors that I was exerting. When I was younger, I would rearrange magnetized letters on the refrigerator into words. I would program the VCR. You remember those? Oh, yeah. To record Sesame Street. I love Sesame Street. And it would also explain why I don't have that many or even any friends at all. But it was a huge weight lifted off my shoulders to know that my condition, my circumstances had a name attached to it, and that name is autism. Now, my parents went on to explain to me that I am a person, first and foremost, with autism versus an autistic person, and that they would love me unconditionally and would fight for me until the day they died to get the services that I needed to succeed. And knowing that I was worth fighting for allowed me to eventually fight for myself. I want to tell you a little something about the autism community. It's one of the most divisive communities out there. My parents were very cautious with the language they used. Person-first language, it's called, when they say, I have autism, or I'm a person with autism. In the community, there's identity-first language. If I were to say, I'm autistic, or I'm an autistic, the human factor is dismissed, or even taken away completely. You're now your diagnosis. My parents assured me that my diagnosis is not my definition. And as Jerry Newport wrote, my life is not a label. Because there are people out there that let their diagnosis become their definition. And people their whole lives are telling them, you're autistic, and that means you're no good at X, Y, and Z. And when they hear this about themselves, they think, well, I'm just not good enough for anything. And they take this to heart, and it's on their mind constantly. Take a picture if you want, it will last longer. These labels, they go about their lives thinking their diagnosis is their definition. And they must call themselves autistic. Almost like that human factor is no longer part of them. They're just autistic. By having person-first language in my life, and my parents telling me that I'm a person first and foremost, that helped me see that I can do what I want. I have the power. I really can do anything that I put my heart and my mind to. So what kind of labels are you putting on yourself? What kind of labels are you putting on others? The words you use to describe yourself and the words that other people use to describe you can carry a lot of weight. And they can either help you accomplish your goals or hinder you from accomplishing them. But person-first language was a huge help for me and helped me see that I could do what I want. I could be Batman. I'm Batman. The hero in my own life, essentially. I could see that I do have strengths. I do have opportunities for improvement, being mindful of the words we use. We don't say weaknesses, we say opportunities for improvement. And And this went on to help me create a mantra that I live by to this day. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. In that order. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. These are my secrets to success. And it really does start with knowing about yourself. Aristotle once said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. So by taking the time to assess my own strengths and challenges or opportunities for improvement, I could take my life in the direction that I wanted to. And thankfully, my parents did take the time to sit me down and tell me about my diagnosis. There are so many families out there that don't do that at all. And the young kids grow up thinking something is off about them. And when they go to their parents, as I did with my mother, the parents could be in denial, just like my mother was, or they fear for the young kid's self-esteem, or they don't think the kid will understand. So the diagnosis is kept a secret. And that is extreme injustice for a young person's development. Knowing yourself includes knowing about your diagnosis or your circumstances so you can create the best life for yourself. I'll give you my own life example. I knew growing up I was always good with numbers and I love Star Wars. I know, I'll be George Lucas's accountant. And having that Batman mentality, he's the one that's determined, disciplined, sees something, goes for it, and sees it through. I decided I'm going to make it happen. My mother proceeds to give me another conversation, the dreaded reality check. You want to be George Lucas's accountant? You have to go to school and pass these college courses. You have to pass all these tests. You have to go and get jobs outside of high school in the entertainment industry. George Lucas is not going to hire someone right out of high school. But me being the hero in my life, having that Batman mentality, I said, I'll do that. And sure enough, I did see a bachelor's degree in accounting, my CPA license, working for Disney right out of college. And you know, Disney actually did acquire Lucasfilm years after I left the company, so retroactively and indirectly, I accomplished my goal. Imagine though, had I not known about my diagnosis, what I'm good at, what I can improve upon, I may not have seen that success through. And that's unfortunately, my friends, where a lot of people with autism are today. They don't know about their diagnosis, their strengths, or their challenges, and they're just sitting around without much of a clue or waiting for life to come to them. Or maybe they do know about their diagnosis, but they're ashamed of it. Like their parents, possibly, they could be in denial about it. Or when we use terms like high-functioning autism, that makes the person think, well, I'm high-functioning, I don't need help, I don't need to listen to anybody. And the flip side of that coin, low-functioning autism. We tell people they're no good at anything, or we give them the impression that they won't amount to anything, and then they get stuck and never amount to anything. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy when you think about it. But being in denial about it, not accepting your circumstances, that ties into the second part of the mantra, love yourself. RuPaul said, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love someone else? Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Oh, you could do better than that. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
There you go. Loving yourself, warts and all, if you will, is key to bettering yourself in the future. And that includes accepting your diagnosis. It doesn't have to define you. It will only define you if you let it. But realizing that you can make the most of it and you have people that do love you and support you, you'll be able to move forward. Now, looking at my own situation and circumstances, growing up, I wanted to be accepted, as many people with autism do. They want to have friendships. They do want to have relationships and be accepted by their peers, but they may not always know how to do so. So they grow up doing all the wrong things and being rejected time after time after time after time. And I thought, I have to work for other people's acceptance. I need to be validated by others. I need to do what other people want me to do because I think it'll make them happy and then they'll like me. But guess what? The happiness had to start with me. Once I loved myself, would others love me back? And I learned about the importance of setting boundaries and saying no. Because I was that people pleaser, that yes man. I was living life to please others. I wanted to be accepted so badly that I would do just about anything to get it, even say yes to things that I wanted to say no to. But being responsible for my own happiness and helping myself see that I could say no and not offend people reminds me of a Dr. Seuss quote, "Say what you want to say, because those who mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind." The people that love me for me would be there to support me and help me through the difficult obstacles that I had to face. Because I saw my own value and I was not going to let other people define my value, my worth, or what I had to offer this planet. So I'm loving myself. I know myself. We come to the next part of the mantra, which is be yourself. Coco Chanel says, beauty begins when you decide to be yourself. Because when I was living my life to please others, I found my identity or my sense of what I wanted in life diminishing bit by bit. But by standing up and realizing I can live the life I want and I choose where my life is going, that made all the difference. Now, looking at the autism community, things get a little bit controversial here. There's be yourself, then there's be your best self. And speaking from experience, when I was younger, I hated change. I was afraid of it. I avoided it like the plague. I loved things that were predictable, consistent, expected. And many people with autism want that in their lives as well. Predictability, consistency, and knowing what to expect. Until I realized, believe it or not, the only predictable, consistent, expected, unchangeable thing in our lives is change. Change is going to happen in our lives whether we like it or not. Also understanding that change can actually be a good thing. And it's happening even in our own bodies. I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago, 5 months ago, or even 5 minutes ago. So why fight something that I literally had no control over and could actually make me be my best self? And having that support system in place, they wanted me to succeed. They wanted me to live the life that I wanted, but I was resistant at first. And that leads me to another story about resistance. I dated a girl with autism a few years ago. I was introduced to her by the same aunt who was the autism specialist in Illinois. We both loved Star Wars, so that was a good foundation for our relationship. Loved movies. We were pen pals for about 10 years. Well, one Christmas time, we would see each other every Christmas. She wanted to be my girlfriend. Now, I didn't really feel the same way about her that she felt about me, but I wanted a girlfriend. And I said, okay, let's give this a shot. She proceeds to move to California from Illinois to be with me. She had come from a very rural part of Illinois. Both of her parents were also on the autism spectrum, and she had had no support services like I'd had her entire childhood. So when she arrives in California, I slowly but surely start to realize she's missing quite a few of the basic functioning skills and some of the basic information she needs to be her best self. But thinking about my own experience, time and patience really helped me. I figured I'd give her some time and patience. My mother, who was my greatest ally to this day, once she did accept my diagnosis, of course, helped my girlfriend get services, an independent living specialist, a job coach, someone to help her around college. All these services she'd never had growing up. Well, she calls her mother back in Illinois to tell her about the services that she's receiving. The mother, who's on the autism spectrum, mind you, responded, "They're looking to change you. Don't let them." So my girlfriend resisted all of the help that we were giving her. She didn't understand that we weren't looking to change her at her core or her identity. We wanted to help her be her best self. Again, I thought time and patience. Maybe she will connect the dots and see that we are looking to help her. Well, 1 year went by, 2 years went by, 3 years went by, and 4 years went by. Very little change. And my happiness was deteriorating exponentially. I just turned 30 years old. I asked myself, do I want the last 4 years to repeat itself? I said, no. And I mustered up the courage to end the relationship. And as she's getting ready to move back to Illinois to be with her parents again, she says, "It's a shame you guys wanted to change me this whole time. I like myself the way I am." Oh my God, if you'd only told us that 4 years ago. We were never looking to change you. We wanted to help you get to where you wanted to be. And this, my friends, is where there's a big disconnect, not just in the autism community, but I think in all of us. If someone's looking to change you or you get the impression that something's wrong with you or what you're doing isn't right, what are you going to do? You're going to put up those boundaries or say, F you, I don't want anything to do with that. But if we can instead bridge the gap and let these young people know that we want what's best for them and we're going to help them live the life that they want, that's going to lead to more success, more collaboration, and a better circumstance or situation for everybody. Getting back to my career, not as George Lucas's accountant, but where I am today. I did leave accounting behind because I'm discovering more and more that my story needs to be told. And so many young people are struggling to be their best selves. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself. So I decided with my mother to put our heads together, and we wrote our very first book together. This is Come to Life, your guide to self-discovery. This book is me talking to my peers and taking them through that mantra, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, so that they can find their niche and find their voice. What that means is everyone with autism has something they thrive in. They have things they can work on, but they do have things they can thrive in. And it's up to us to find out what that niche is. And we often sit them down and ask them those questions, like, what do you want to do? What are you good at? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? But they tend to say, I don't know. So we start to assume what they're good at, or figure, you're good with numbers, let's make you into a mathematician. Do they want to be a mathematician? Probably not. But because they haven't quite found their voice yet, they may not be willing or able to say, that's not what I want, or can we look at something else, please? And they roll along with a life that's not theirs. And that is what's causing the unhappiness, the depression, the anxiety, the rejection, the hopelessness that so many adults with autism are facing today. So what we need to do is take a step back and take young people through the process of self-discovery. Know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, find your niche, and find your voice. Then we can bring out the best selves in people with autism. Now I'm going to leave you with a quote, one of my favorites, from Chris Gardner. He wrote The Pursuit of Happiness. It was later made into a Will Smith movie. Don't let someone tell you you can't do something. Not even your parents. If you have a dream, you have to protect it. People can't do something themselves, they want to tell you you can't do it. If you want something, go get it. Period. I'm Thomas Island. May you know yourself, love yourself, and be yourself.